I know it's a ukulele, but that's the only thing I play. I wish I played piano or drums or the didgeridoo, but I only play the ukulele, so that's what I'm gonna do. And this is a little theme song for the Happiness Anonymous Share Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Happiness Anonymous Share Show. Hi. How are you all today? I'm feeling really proud of myself today, actually, because I've overcome quite a few obstacles today. But how are you all today? Throw your comments in the section in the comment section below or to the side. Let me know how you're doing today. Just get involved. Post a comment. I'm going to be in the comment section as well and talking to you all night as well. But today I'm checking in. What I mean by check in, by the way, for anybody who doesn't necessarily listen to my podcast that's been going on, the Happiness Anonymous podcast, is a check-in, is basically a chance for you to pause and sit back and think in on yourself and go, how am I doing? How am I doing? And not in that sort of British way of going, hi, how are you? I'm good. But actually, I'm dying and crying inside. No, actually check in. Tell me how you're doing. I want to know, how are you doing? Hello, Aaron. Thank you. Well done on conquering some obstacles. Those obstacles, actually, they are about today's show. So today I had scheduled with Joe Raczka, one of my dearest friends, to have a live discussion about happiness. And early this morning, Joe messaged me saying that something quite last minute, quite something he couldn't not attend, had come up for this evening, starting about 15 minutes ago. But what we managed to do is we managed to get on a little bit earlier today and have the discussion anyway and pre-record it. So we're not going to miss out on that conversation. And I've got lined up a nice video here with Joe and I discussing and answering this question of what is your approach to happiness. And yeah, so that's gonna be there, and I'm gonna be in the comment section along with everybody, talking with everybody as well. Let's have still a moment together to talk and discuss. Whack into the comment section what your approach to happiness as well, because even if it's just reaching out to one other person, sees that comment and goes, hey, that resonates with me, and I think that might be my answer. This is why I always ask this question, and I want to broadcast everybody's different opinions and approaches to happiness, because maybe it gives people a key, because there's not one way to happiness, and that's all what Happiness Anonymous is about. But before I click the button and get us going to, for me, what was a few hours ago, for everybody else, what is now, just a reminder that I'm still raising money for Mind Charity. There is a link in the description of this video. Go ahead if you can. If you're enjoying the show now or have been for the last few days, then please go and donate to Mind if you have the means. If you don't, just share the links. And hopefully we can make a little bit of a difference in that kind of way as well. But the things that we can control, which that is the key to happiness for me, that is my approach to happiness, is focusing on what I can control and not anything else. What we can control now is actually sitting and having a discussion with Joe, who is here with us presently, but from the past. So I'm going to click this and I'll be in the comment section. So comment away, and here we go. Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. We've just been talking for a while, so this is an interesting way to start a podcast / stream. Thank you for coming on and talking. I'm a little bit nervous about this because I remember when I first started the Happiness Anonymous podcast and said to Sean and Kate, our friends, that they should come on and we should talk about our approach to happiness. And I considered and mentioned to you, hey, do you want to be on the show? And do you remember what
I believe my response to you was, you do realize happiness is a lie caused by your brain.
Yeah, you did that, but you did that not in so few words, and you did
Yeah.
it with far more like of a debate style.
Oh no, I used the phrase chemical imbalance more than once. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember it was around Christmas time, and I was feeling very, very happy at the time. And yeah, no, I was kind of like, huh, great. And then I think my other half joined for that a bit of that conversation, and you went, oh, do you know that love is just a chemical imbalance as well? So everybody, this is Joe.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I just to check, am I allowed to refer to our other podcast on this?
Yes,
Cool.
especially since it's doing a takeover every Saturday.
Fair point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm assuming at least one person who watches this may also watch or listen to, depending on how they absorb it, the Theatre Pitch podcast. They'll probably know by now that kind of it's almost like essentially Jem and Sean are a pair of like happy flames, and I'm occasionally the bucket of water.
Yeah, so you're the perfect guest to kick off the discussions as part of my Ed Prince show, which I'm so excited for. And you are the person who's going to kick off the discussions about the approaches to happiness and talks about joy and mental health. Are you excited for that?
Sure.
Okay,
I think
so
that's kind of like rule number one of it. Is my approach to happiness is kind of almost set your expectations low. Don't really get excited, because if you don't get excited, you can't be disappointed.
I mean, I can kind of see how that happens, because I know when I was quite young, and now in hindsight, I know that it was because I was surrounding myself with utter arseholes, and really bad people. I kind of decided sort of mid-teens that this idea of hope was actually really, really bad, and this idea that you would hope, or as you say, expectations, and kind of envision how things would go, would only ever lead to disappointment. I now know that like there's a tad bit of bullshit in that, just because you know, if you surround yourself with good people, you shouldn't be let down unless there's a really good reason. So, but I kind of get that. I have arguments with myself about it, because it does. I still hope and I still get excited.
Yeah, it's here's where I'm going to get into my first potentially pretentious term of the episode, and it's that I previously determined my worldview as because I think some people, including you, more than once on our other podcast, have critiqued me as a nihilist, and I dispute that term. I claim that what my worldview is pragmatic optimism. It's a belief that it would be great if things worked out for the best, but being prepared for the intentionally inevitable kind of worst.
See, I really, really like that statement until you say inevitable worst. Because I mean, I am very, very happy-go-lucky. I'm very, very optimistic. But at the same time, anybody who knows me well knows that I am quite a warrior, and I disaster, and as my dad would say of my mom, I danger mom things. And it's always one of those, prepare for the worst. And I think there's a good thing in preparing for the worst, but I also think that you shouldn't believe it to be inevitable.
Well, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that. which is one of those classic moves of someone who doesn't have a response, who's going to let the other person build up enough things that they can hopefully have something to respond to.
Well, okay, so let's reel it back a little bit. Because one of the things that I really wanted to do with this kind of discussion is talk to interesting people about their approach to happiness, because I think there's not just one approach.
Yeah.
And so would you say that idea of pragmatic optimism is something that is wholly your approach to happiness? Is that something that you do on a daily basis, or would you say that you go about it in a different kind of way as well? Is it more complex than that?
Yeah, it's more than that, because I think that also implies a lot that I think about everything, and that I'm not necessarily the most impulsive person, but there are a lot of things that I will go into, such as the entirety of our other podcast, purely on emotion, on allowing the heart to lead over the head. I'm not someone who actually is that bothered about kind of thinking every little thing through first. I think it's more just kind of, essentially, it's something that I'm fully aware that a lot of the universe is chaos. And I've actually set myself, one of my 3 New Year's resolutions this year was to accept that chaos more and not try to care about it as much, almost. To let things happen and just try to do my best within them.
I mean, that's so resonates with me right now. And it's something that I think I really, really admire about you, is you're an improviser full on and full through. And I'm actually quite surprised that it's a goal of yours to embrace the chaos as much, because you are somebody who I would say, of all of the people that I surround myself with, and they are good people now, you are like a chaos monster. You love it and you embrace it, and you completely kind of go, you know what, you are somebody who completely backs yourself and completely it's like you don't care what people think of you. You're doing you. And you're doing you at your own pace, which is something I've always admired, because I feel a lot of the pressure a lot more than that.
See, the thing is, I think that even people who it seems like they don't care what people think about them, everyone to some extent or another cares about what the people are saying about them. No one wants to hear negative things about themselves, but at the same time, I'm far more likely to disregard it if I don't care what the person thinks.
Yeah,
it's more an individual case by case basis. It's, it's just, essentially, to be a good improviser, I do believe the only thing you really need is the ability to step up onto a stage and think, I am the most qualified person to be here.
Yeah.
That's it. You just need to convince yourself you have that confidence.
But I mean, I think you also, at least from the outside, you seem to approach life that way. And you seem to kind of approach things of going, well, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, I am the most qualified person to be who I am as well, which is something that I secretly try and replicate. Not necessarily successfully, but definitely something I try and replicate.
Well, as last time by that, it is interesting with that actually. I go back to a few years ago. I was doing a master's in journalism, and one time in a lecture, one of the lecturers said to us that it was in concerning our kind of like public profiles, especially like Twitter, Facebook, that kind of thing, of if we wanted to not limit the sort of jobs we can get, to make sure that we were avoiding kind of outwardly public kind of like political statements.
Okay.
Just because, if you're seen as being too aggressively left-wing, it might be that even some kind of like centrist papers look at you and think, well, how can we expect them not to
be biased,
potentially say something that gets into some trouble?
Yeah.
And my thinking in response to that wasn't, okay, I better go through my Twitter profile and get rid of anything potentially controversial, but was to think, yeah, but why would I want to work for anywhere that didn't want me?
Yeah. And I think I get that entirely. And that's the piece of advice I give on the career side. Because I don't know about you, I very much have all of these different facets. And I think, I mean, you and I have known each other for 10 years now, so you're probably one of the few people on this planet who know the different facets of me quite well. But there's definitely this sort of career-dominated personality that is very driven and can't be touched, and is like, you know, and very much anytime I approach a job interview, yeah, people turn around to me and say, well, how can you be laughing in a job interview? How can you be jovial? Why did you make that joke? That's so unprofessional. And I'm always saying, this is me. If they don't like me, I can't turn that bit of me off. I could, but I'd be miserable. And I don't want to do that, because if you're spending 8 hours a day, 5 days out of 7, you know, it doesn't make sense to put yourself in a situation where you have to pretend to be something other than you are. So there's this part of me that so fully believes in what you're saying. But then when it comes to social situations, I think that's where I very much become night and day, is that I desperately want to believe accept me or go away. But I'm also such a people pleaser. And somebody who somehow in my head, this idea of being happy is also linked to being surrounded by people who like you. And although, like, yours and my friendship, the friendship I have with Sean, the friendship I have with my parents and my brother and the people in my life that are closest to me, we aren't sitting there being kind to each other all the time. We aren't, you know, we're breaking each other's balls. We're not being, we're not acting like we like each other.
Yeah, this isn't something that anyone who, fully needs explained if they've ever listened to the Theatre Bitch podcast.
Yeah, you and Sean just bully me.
I've got to be honest, I've been listening back to episodes and have found myself kind of just sitting there going like, you know what, Joe, you were right. Yours is a good idea. Everyone else's sucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, with the Theatre Pitch, there's definitely some episodes where I'm like, yeah, what was I on about? Like everybody else's pitches are so much better, and I'm sitting there going, oh, I love my idea. I guess I back myself in the moment.
Yeah, that's the thing is, you know, you've got to respect the fact that it's like, in those instances, I'm pretty certain that just based on rewatching the episodes and seeing your reactions, that there are times when, like, I've presented ideas that you haven't liked, or Sean's presented ideas that I haven't liked, or you've presented ideas that Sean hasn't liked. It's, you know, kind of vice versa, etc., etc. But it's, we've all got the thing of, it's like, we don't all going in just being like, hey, our idea is brilliant, but we at least have 90% of the time we back ourselves. And that's what kind of matters in that instance, is we're not presenting something. A lot of the time, what I'm presenting isn't what I think would be the best show in terms of selling it to everybody. It's purely me thinking, when I look at the articles that we do, what's the show I'd want to see out of it?
Exactly.
And that's kind of it. Is it's not that I realize that in a way this is almost like me saying happiness is selfish, but it is kind of, to a certain small extent, it's kind of a good level of selfishness of it. It's not putting something out into the world that's going to harm someone else, but it's about putting something out into the world that is what you want to put into the world. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing that I have been struggling with a lot, is this. I've got a very complex relationship with this idea of selfishness. And for me, my baseline for what I deem as selfish is so low. You know, it's that, oh, I'm going to, I'm in a shop and there is a bag of crisps that I really want, but I'm seeing somebody else eye them up. And I would feel like I was a devil if I took that bag, and I would prioritize a complete stranger over myself, even if it is something as trivial as that. But then, I mean, you've seen me prioritize other people over something that's bigger than just a bag of crisps in a store. And I think backing yourself in that quote unquote selfish way is a big part of happiness, and it is something that you need to be able to have the capability of saying, is that who's the one person that's going to be with you when you die for shoresies? It's gonna be you.
Yeah. It's, I've spent more time with myself than anyone else has. And
yeah. I
at
envy
this
everybody
point,
else.
I mean, I'm still not bored of me.
Oh no, I would never say that I'm bored of myself. I think I amuse myself endlessly.
Oh yeah, I sometimes feel like an asshole for laughing at jokes I've made either on when listening back to podcasts I've been on, or just in my head.
Yeah, no, I mean, notoriously, I'm not the funny one out of all of us, and I still love I make myself laugh with all of the genuinely not funny things I say. They are genuinely funny to me.
Yeah. This is a fun little kind of. I know we're probably going to get to plugs later in the episode anyway, but thought I might as well throw this in now if it's yet. Basically, as previously mentioned, I do improv, and I've got a group I do improv with. Two guys I know from Aberystwyth Days, two people who, frankly, have, in spite of what it might look like over those episodes that we do, have kept me sane this past year. And it's this show Boat Club we do. It's an improv thing that we put onto YouTube most Mondays. And if you look for when an episode's up and try and get there on the Monday before I've got round to editing the video file, you get to see all the little like running jokes and nonsense that we say before the episodes actually starts, like the unrestrained whatever it is that comes out of our mouths when we're not trying to actually filter it for a more audience friendly version. And
Yeah.
it's that I kind of like, is it's that version that is the pure unfiltered version of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's something that everybody should kind of try and strive to. I know I kind of sound like a stuck record and like one of those motivational posters that try and tell you how you live your life, but I always strive to be unapologetically me. And sometimes it's hard because I know I'm quite a chameleon as well. And that's why I look at you and I look at Sean and I look at the people around me and kind of go, at no point in no situation do I think that you would change and that you would filter yourself.
Well, it's kind of funny bringing that up, considering obviously as well, this is later on in the Share Show season. Me and you were going to be going through some of the bits of songs that I'd kind of started writing with you and started writing for Happiness Anonymous. And one of the songs I'd written for kind of like reasonably round about like the middle of the show was one that was all about kind of this notion of accepting oneself wholly. And the bit where it's like the chorus was saying just, no one's ever going to stop me from being who I want to be. And even if I don't know who that is, I know it's me.
I love that song. And it's like it's an anthem of mine. And whenever I hear it, I'm like, yes, we should do that. You should stop being a hypocrite, Jem.
But I think that is it's kind of what I really want to express with that was because I'd had an earlier version that was kind of, as with most things I write, it started off a lot sadder. This is I'm on paper, I am not the right person for this podcast because most of what I write, despite the fact I'm not even that sad a person, I don't think. I think I'm reasonably like generally quite content. But most of what I write is just kind of like, what if we started without jokes and worked our way up to there and then maybe decided actually no, it doesn't need the jokes.
Which I think is incredibly brave. I know, going back to songwriting, I have set myself a challenge to actually, one of the things I've always wanted to do is write a song. And every time I try and do it, I try and be funny. I think that's why I'm not funny, is I try to be funny most of the time. But this idea of having this sort of braveness to and courage to try not to entertain, just to try and be truthful and honest. I think that's something that's also a very interesting facet to consider. Why do you think, as somebody who, because on paper you are the most miserable, defeatist, pessimistic lamp that there is.
Thank you.
But why do you think that? Because you are in person and in reality, you're incredibly content. You're jolly at times, and you're very much a solid rock. Why do you think that you enjoy the sadness of things? Why do you think you're drawn to that, or are you not? Are you not drawn to sadness?
In a weird way, I think I am, and I think part of it almost is I'm never that bothered about listening to happy music or watching kind of like happy feel-good television in a way, because I'm already there at a kind of baseline of content. So it's like, why would I need to listen to happy music if I'm already feeling happy? I'm not for, kind of, I'm not someone who actually struggles with depression myself. So I find it kind of fascinating to engage with kind of art that does deal with issues like depression, with kind of the dark realms of things, because they're not things I know myself or experience, I think, almost. So I kind of, I enjoy interacting with it more because it's something I'm not currently able to relate to personally. So it's understanding it more almost.
Do you think that you are the emotionally stable one out of the group? I'm going to call you Unicorn from now on.
I wouldn't go that far. I'd say I'm the one who's settled. I'd say I'm the one who has accepted that'll do as kind of like a mantra.
Yeah, I think. I mean, that almost sort of. That makes me. And you know how much that's just triggered the inside of me, because I'm such a perfectionist. I'm such a let's push harder, let's be better. This idea of that'll do.
But of course,
constantly the fight.
There is the plus sides to it. The downsides are, for instance, the fact that that'll do has potentially led to the fact that I am 28 and still living at home.
I mean, that or a lack of having to pay rent. It's potentially a very smart idea. I mean, go on.
No, I was just going to say, if my parents end up eventually watching this, it would be a really great thing to not have to pay rent.
Yes, let's not instigate a massive life change in that kind of way. But I think so. Just touching on that and starting to shift into the harder truths, because why not? And feel free not to answer these questions. Do you think that you are content with being somebody who's naturally content with everything?
There are times when I kind of want to push at things more. I don't always do it, but there are times when I want to.
Do you have any techniques that you use?
Techniques?
Technique, yeah, those.
Yeah. No, not really. It's kind of more just I think it's really actually it's kind of I'm sure I'm not the only person who's had this thought, kind of, especially these last 2 years, that let's get into it on a global stage. Everything in 2020 and 2021 has kind of sucked. It's not been a great world overall. And It's one of those that I've looked at it and thought, in a future where hopefully we're able to move past this as a society and not necessarily get back to something as normal, but get to something closer to a society again. I want to think that I'm going to be the person to hopefully come out of this and come out swinging.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously I don't know I am yet, but I hope I will be.
I think that that's something that I very much live my life to, not necessarily. I don't know if I've ever associated it with this idea of chasing happiness, but it's something that I just do anyway. Is there was a motto, so I don't know who gave it to me or what it was, but it was this idea of always kind of position yourself to be in the best situation you could ever be in, to take any opportunity that comes your way. And you know, it's what's the motto? It's better to be over prepared and fly your way through with ease rather than be underprepared and fall on your face.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of works against me at the very least when it comes to this idea of worrying. And that's a cause of a lot of unhappiness for me, at least at the moment, is this idea of worrying. And that comes from overthinking, and that comes from wanting to be over prepared. And so there's, I think, everything within reason is healthy, but if you go too overboard. But I think anyone can really align themselves, whatever that may be, to come out swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of. It's yeah. I was just thinking about that with it, and now it's the time where I start to try and get more potential in this other thing. Of it's like, you know, kind of. I don't know if you know the Samuel Beckett quote of it. It's where I am, I don't know. I'll never know. In the silence you don't know, you must go on. I can't go on. I'll go on. And
wow.
I've ultimately always seen it as a point of it's in the work of a man who ultimately kind of lacks hope a lot of the time. It's ultimately his most hopeful statement almost there is this idea that it's fundamentally kind of you have two choices in any instance, to keep going or give up. And if you give up, effectively, you will eventually have to keep going anyway.
Yeah,
because
I know. That kind of resonates with me in a weird way. I know when I was in some of the darker times of my life, I very much found solace in possibly one of the most pessimistic mottos I kind of live by, which is you've got to keep going because there's no other option. You will keep going because you must. And it's very much in that idea of you can lose all hope and everything can be utterly shite, but ultimately your life is still going to keep going, so you might as well go ahead. You might as well just go for it.
Yeah, well, we've had this discussion before, of course. The classic bit within my theory that within the classic quote from Ferris Bueller, this idea that if you don't stop and look around every once in a while, the world might pass you. But what is it? Is it the world might pass you?
I think so.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. If you're watching this on the actual stream, please fact check Jem then, but don't let me know.
Yeah, put it in the comment section below.
Yeah, but my theory is that kind of almost the thing is that really it's the important thing is every so often taking a moment to take stock of your surroundings, to really be aware of where you are. But at the same time, the important thing is every once in a while, you don't want to get stuck only waiting for things to happen, because then everything can pass you by.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think because it can swing the other way as well. You know, Ferris Bueller very much frames it within this really optimistic, you're on a journey and an adventure and everything's going so well, and take stock of it so that you don't miss it and so that you remember it. But it swings the other way around, is that I think, I mean, with the Happiness Anonymous podcast, I'm always pulling a check-in just at the start of the episode. And for me, that's always encouraging other people as well, listeners, to check in and give yourself just that second to go, how are you doing? Because I think if you keep running and you never check in with yourself, you won't be able to see any kind of warning signs if anything's going amiss. You'll just end up at the bottom of a pit, or you will end up on the top of a mountain and it's going to be fantastic. And then when somebody asks you, how did you get here? You're going to go, I don't know. And now I can't write a book about it and earn lots of money and further the height of my mountain. But
yeah.
So
of course, I think it once again determines some of the essential differences between our worldviews, that you can be posed by someone the question, how did I get here? And not burst into the chorus to Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads.
Very true. I am less quote driven, more like the quotes that I am driven by are the ones that sort of white women get tattooed to the back of their necks or to their arms in Thailand or something.
Yeah, how attacked did you feel by the Bo Burnham song White Women Instagram?
I found it joyous because ultimately I don't have too much of a white woman's Instagram account. But over time, as I've listened to it more and then looked at how many latte art photos I've got on my Instagram and how many pictures of cats and things, I've found it oddly empowering to own that part of myself. It's kind of like Bo's taken my head and gone, look at what you've become. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not the worst of that. I don't think. I hope not. And I trust that you and the people around me would go, you are white womaning too much right now. And yeah, I kind of embraced that idea that, because I think for me, I'm always striving to be different, and to accept that there are at least parts of me that are similar to other people feels like I'm furthering that idea of just accepting myself rather than just rebelling against everything all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's important to always start with kind of any kind of self-actualization. You don't have to, in doing so, just be like, I'm great. No notes, 100%. It's, self-actualization is about not just that, but about accepting that there are good points to yourself. It's not saying that there's nothing to be worked on, but just that there are some things that actually don't need changing.
Yeah, and also on the swing of that, it's also this idea of don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And, this idea, especially the way Bo Burnham frames this idea of a white woman and how society frames Karens and white women, and they are negative. And we try and reduce things to good and evil. We try and reduce things to something way too simplistic. And I think if you actually go, okay, I'm not peak white woman, I'm not peak Karen, but I have elements of that that, maybe are great, maybe are not, but ultimately they are part of me and I'm going to accept them. But I'm not going to hate on myself for it. I'm not going to hate on how many latte art pictures I take. I'm not going to hate on how many cat memes I post in a day.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely an element to it with me personally that I find there are some times where I will just go on a purge and basically delete all the apps off my phone of social media things. I'll go through my various social media profiles and have a run through and just like try and cut down, looking to see if there are any friends I have on Facebook who I honestly think to myself, do I want to hear from this person again?
Yeah.
And go through and just like remove Instagram accounts where I'm just, I get almost sick of hearing too much about other people's good news. And
I get that.
And I just will go through and reduce it down back to the level that I feel happy engaging with again, and then build it back up and then cut it down again when it gets too much. And I think it's just accepting that ultimately, it's not, you can't just say everyone's social media presences aren't their real authentic selves. Some people probably are that obnoxious in real life. But But
It's
I
true.
think, yeah, I think it's about setting those boundaries for it just being like, ultimately what this is information on a website.
Yeah.
If what there is being put forward is upsetting me and isn't enriching my life, why am I engaging with it?
Yeah,
And
I very much take the Marie Kondo. It's the one thing in my life that I take Marie Kondo's advice on. Is social media. Is if I see something or an account, and I think, is this giving me joy? Does this bring me joy? And if it doesn't, and it routinely doesn't, then I unfollow and I unsubscribe. Whereas anything, so essentially, my feed is full of things that give me joy. Which is why I share so much content.
yeah,
Is because I love it and it's fun and I want to spread that joy. But I think what you're saying is right about you're in control of that.
but yeah, so it's like I basically have tried to basically tailor the algorithm to only show me things I care about, and specifically one account called Hot Dog City USA, that it's just an artist making tiny ceramic hot dogs. And
oh my goodness,
this is the only thing that matters on Instagram.
Arguable.
Well, no, yeah, that's true. I will also take this moment to just plug all my sister's accounts: Oak and Claw, Vegan Allotment, Doug Pickles the dog. Just follow them all.
Yes, your sister has a dog account, which is fantastic. And I think any cat account and OFIT, our company's accounts.
Oh yeah, them.
Yeah, them. That thing that we've dedicated our lives to so far.
Them/us.
Yes. I have to say, actually, on that note, because you've done it a few times now and I haven't had a chance to actually express it, is you are so good at self-promotion and so good at just, you could say, shamelessly self-promoting yourself and weaseling in those bits of moments where you can mention what you're doing. And having done and worked with the Happiness Anonymous Share Show and talking to people about, okay, so can you send, do you want to take part? Do you want to share? What would you like to share? And people are like, I'd love to, but I'm not very good at this, or I do this thing, but it's not very interesting. And I'm like, actually, it's really great. And I think you do that really well. You also do segues fantastically. Just if we're turning this into the Not Joe Raczka compliment show.
No, please do just fan more hot air at my ass. I need it.
This is why you're so content all the time, is that you have this like ever optimistic puppy of a friend called Jem.
I have somehow surrounded myself with people who will shower me with just enough compliments to keep me at the level where my head is ballooning but not exploding.
I think we should all do that, I think we should all just sit and make a compliment jar for ourselves.
Yeah, everyone basically, Jem, what you need is a gem. You need to find
everyone.
what you need is someone to kind of do for you what you do for other people.
I agree that I probably need that. There is some funny joke that is actually quite sharp in how the show Happiness Anonymous, this all started from, is 6 versions of me. And so because I can't find a me, I created another voice in my head to do me for me. Which sounds more like a cry for help than a joke.
But if nothing else, at least you're in creating 6 alternate versions of yourself, you're accepting that there are multitudes to you. You're not just being like, what to say about me? There's very little. You're like, no, there are at least 6 things to say about me.
Yeah, no, I will expand on that in that idea of, even earlier in this episode, I was kind of hating on the fact that I'm a chameleon and that I change from situation to situation and there are different versions of me. But ultimately that is something to praise, and that is something to love about myself, is that I'm very adaptable, and I can have a really great conversation with myself.
Don't get me wrong. Most of my day I spend kind of just being like, God, if only anyone else enjoyed my kind of like random bits I come up with in my head as much as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember, wait a minute, but they're in here. I've got a 100% hit rate in terms of the audience in my head. Why bother showing them to anyone?
I have about sort of 98% hit rate. There's always that one voice that's just like, you're so not funny. Which again makes everybody else laugh, and therefore I bump it up to that 100% hit rate. I mean, my mom always struggled to, I think she struggled with both me and my brother to ever ground us or send us to our room. And I've always said, you can, fine, go ahead, lock me up in a padded white cell. It's not going to be punishment, because I'm going to be able to amuse myself very easily, because there are multitudes of me and I enjoy it.
Well, I think that's it. Yeah. It's, you know, kind of always fun when you can force someone to try and come up with more creative punishments, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. We're circling right back to like this question of why do you enjoy sadness and writing about sadness?
Well, I think there's also, it's an element of, I oddly think there's more catharsis in it than, and there's more joy in that kind of cathartic feeling of just kind of, like a lot of the time, if I'm ever just want to really pick myself up, what I will do is essentially is stick on like some kind of, usually it's either punk or like kind of mid-noise, kind of like Midwest type emo, like not the sort of pop punk style. I'm about kind of like your hardcore kind of like verging on math rock type emo.
Yeah.
Where essentially the joke was always like, you know, I wish my lawnmower was as emo as me so that we could cut ourselves together. And it's, I think there's a certain thing of it. It's in this kind of like real intensity and real kind of like approaching these vibes of it just been lacking that hope, but still just being there and still, as we said, going on, that I just find more fulfilling than someone saying, this is good, aren't we happy? And I think screaming is just more cathartic than cheering.
And I think that's the final line that we need to end this episode on, because I think that and this might be a bit of a shock, as somebody who is the one who's always the cheerleader and always cheering and always like, hey, everybody, let's be happy. I am still, and you know this because you've read some of my writing and you've read some of the things that have brought me the most joy on a personal level, is screaming is far more entertaining and far more cathartic than going, we're going to be happy. We're going to be happy.
Yeah.
We're going to be happy. Everybody be happy.
Yeah. I think a good thing to, like, if I can just throw one thing, is ultimately the worst thing I think is to ask someone kind of why they're feeling the way they are, or whether they've tried to not feel it, because I think it's ultimately telling someone how to feel. There's a surefire way to make sure that they're feeling the opposite almost. Like
go on.
Like I will almost always, if I feel like something is trying to influence me to feel something, will instinctively almost just shut down and refuse to respond to it.
You're the rebel, that's why.
Like because, you know, if I'm watching something, like, it doesn't matter if we're talking two ends of the spectrum here. If we're talking like watching Mamma Mia, or if we're talking listening to like Adele, it's, you know, if it's telling me you should be happy, or if it's telling me you should feel sad. In both situations, my response is just to feel nothing. And I feel like the body almost instinctively chooses how to feel and refuses to be influenced.
I think, and for anybody who hasn't listened to the episode, I'll link it below to when I asked Sean Brady, who we do the Theatre Pitch podcast, about his approach to happiness. He was very much saying how it's very much an outward FU. It's very much an outward decision to be on his own side and to back himself and to be like FU. Whereas I think you do it on a very visceral, instinctive level. It's not something that comes to the frontal cortex. It's just your primal brain and that primal node going, no, F you.
Oh, there is a large part of me that also would like to think that, because I'm also a petty bitch, that I would like to think there are some people just being pissed off by my happiness. And
I like that, yeah.
And just, yeah, especially considering like all the various places my family come from, I'd like to think that there are some far right people out there who are just angered to know that I can be happy.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's probably something to take away, is like, if you are instinctively a rebel, embrace that idea that happiness is quite rebellious.
Yeah, happiness is an act of defiance. That's what you should take away from this.
There you go. I was about to ask, what is your biggest tip, and what is your biggest thing that if you could say on this idea of happiness, what is the one statement you'd have tattooed to your forehead?
Yeah. If I was going to get one statement tattooed to my forehead, it's a piece of advice a friend gave me a long time ago, that he was saying it in reference to relationships, but I feel it is applicable to happiness, to almost anything in life, which is that ultimately happiness, relationships, anything is like farts. If you try to force it, it's probably just shit.
And there's the bombshell we were looking for to end on.
And just like that, you've just pushed your show into the 12+ category. Enjoy.
Oh, we've said shit a couple of times, which is why I was like, oh, let's say F instead of my favorite word ever, because I don't quite know.
It's fine. As soon as we're off air, we can both just scream it at each other for like 5 seconds.
Yes, screaming is better than cheering, and don't force it, or it's going to be shit. Thank you, Joe. This has been really fun and quite. We see each other every week, and we chat all the time, but it's very rare that we actually get to sit down and chat about life and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah. If
now's the time, promote. Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I think my name's somewhere round about here. Not Joe Raczka. You can see it spelled there, NOTJOERACZKA. Find me there on Twitter. Find me there on Instagram if you want. I've actually posted something recently.
I know. I thought that I was like, oh my goodness, has Joe like gone viral? Because that's the only reason he'd ever post something.
No, it's quite simply, it's because I just thought to myself, this is a way of, therefore, if I tell other people what films I've seen, I won't forget.
Oh, smart. Very smart.
This is the only reason I'm doing this, is to try and keep a personal log.
Okay, fair enough. I think I'm going to just have to start doing that with everything and just go, hi, I'm Instagramming like this random page of my book. Hi, I'm Instagramming a photo of my glasses. Not because it's interesting, but because I keep losing my glasses.
This should be the new thing, is essentially using social media as a form of memory. Not even memory in the way of nostalgia, literally in a way of short-term memory.
I need it, and you know that right now. So there you go, everybody. Thank you for watching. Those are your top 3 tips. Go scream, don't force shit, and use Instagram as a memory diary. It's not where we thought we'd end up, is it?
Nah, but it's where we are, and let's embrace that.
We followed our fun. Right. Thank you, everybody. I think I'm going to cut back to me now, I guess. And I did. Thank you, everybody, for watching that. That was quite fun with Joe a little bit earlier today. And thank you, Aaron, and anybody else in the comment section. Hopefully you've been enjoying that as well. So yeah, that was a discussion that I hope to have live, but because we are living in a digital world and because digital is amazing, we are here and I could still bring that conversation that I thought was quite important and quite fun. And it's all also been facilitated by, one day I'll get the hand right, the PBH Free Fringe. Go check out all of their other shows. There are shows all day, every day for the next month, both in Edinburgh if you are there and comfortable, or online. But head over to freefringe.org. I will post the link in the description, and go see what other things are happening at the PBH Free Fringe, both virtually and in person. Once again, let's keep raising money for Mind charity. The links are in the description. And before I go, tomorrow's show. I am coming back live tomorrow, again at 8 o'clock UK time or Edinburgh time, with, I will pull it up. Drum roll, please. Boom. You can also see my emails in the background. Boom. I am doing a craft eve. Essentially, if anybody is a fan of Queer Eye, or is also a fan of JVN, Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, and has Instagram, you've probably been spammed by his sponsoring of a Skillshare thing that he's doing, where it's just a lot of mindfulness and crafts. And it reminded me about how I very much use craft as happiness as well. And I think a lot of us enjoy moments where we can just grab crayons or grab Lego or grab whatever it is that we enjoy doing and just spend half an hour creating something without any pressure. It doesn't have to be for a reason. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be good, but we'll do it live. We'll do it together. We will share what we're doing. And I'm very excited for it because I get to sit and share a little bit of what I do and also probably inspire a little bit of a tidy of the chaotic desk that I'm sat at because it's the Fringe. So of course it's chaotic. But join me tomorrow at 8 o'clock Edinburgh time, wherever that may be for your time, and we will sit. Bring along any of your crafting, even if it's just Lego and you want to sit and play with Lego for half an hour and have a total excuse to tell everybody to leave you alone because you're playing with Lego with somebody on the internet. Because doesn't that just sound fantastic? So do come along. That's tomorrow's show. If you can, and if you've enjoyed this show, donate to Mind. It's in the Just Giving link. And again, also suggest any other charities for next week. Potentially a homeless charity, if we can do that. And yes, thank you so much, Joe. You aren't here live, but you'll probably see this. Maybe you won't. But thanks to Joe for coming along. I hope everybody's enjoyed this. I certainly have. And I hope that you have a fantastic night and a fantastic day tomorrow. And I will see you tomorrow, covered in paint and glitter, with Lego pieces in my hair. I feel like I'm now going to hold myself to that. But definitely come along for Craft Eve tomorrow. And see you all then. Have a great night.